Men of Reddit, what can you acknowledge is harder for women? Public restrooms always have more of a line than men's rooms. Plus, you'll get to sit down on every nasty public toilet you have to use. That sucks. This one time at a punk show, I asked where the restroom was. The gentleman pointed to the alleyway outside the venue. I thought gross, but punk show. Can't exactly complain. So, I release the crane and make when this punk girl strolls up next to me, gives me a sup nod, whips out a plastic contraption, and puts my measly little stream to shame. I learned two things: women drew the short straw on restrooms, and punk girls are a different breed. This summer I drove cross country to visit my family. We didn't want to have to stop in restrooms, so we thought it would be better to stop on the side of the road. I bought a shiwi to use, and I have to say they are harder to use than it looks. They are right. I can't use mine when I'm wearing tight jeans or anything with a zip really, without still pulling my trousers down. The problem is that for men, their is right at the front. We have to put the shiwi underneath us, which is still much harder to do in trousers. Especially women's trousers. Edit. Also, men can sort of bend it the right way without spillage. I only really trust mine when I'm wearing a skirt or loose shorts, and I can just go through the trouser leg, haha. So still squatting most of the time, which is annoying as hell if you've got the shiwi right there. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. Damn, so many good ones have been said already. A relatively minor thing that I haven't seen yet is hair. Body hair of any kind is often something women are expected to minimize/remove completely. Also, long hair is to take care of and manage, as I've come to realize by letting my hair grow past my shoulders during the pandemic. Yep, long hair. How do they do it? And why are women expected to have long hair? One of the weirdest fashion gender defaults beside the women should wear tight clothes. Men shouldn't wear tight clothes. As a woman, body hair is a take care of. I've had super short hair and super long hair, and I'll take the long hair over the short any day. But that is entirely up to preference and hair type. I cannot get my hair to behave if it's shorter. When it's long it weighs everything down so it actually behaves and looks decent. But that's entirely subjective. Creepy people following you. My girlfriend walked home from work sometimes. It wasn't far, and it was in broad daylight. This guy drove by and asked to give her a ride. She declined, said she was almost home. When she got home she told me about it and how he kept driving up and down the street looking at her afterwards. He followed her into the apartment complex and parked his car to watch her go into the apartment. I was obviously upset. I went out with her so she could point him out, but he had left. It was weird. I told her to call me right away if she sees him anywhere near here. Imagine this but without a boyfriend that cares. Many times, to not say always, cops don't believe you and brush you away. Here in Italy a lot of women ended up tragically because despite of the huge amount of reports they never got helped. Never go home if you are being followed. Call somebody, walk into a store, enter an apartment management office, don't let the critters know where you live. Next time she should just say no, thanks and keep walking. Repeat as necessary without ever saying anything else, but make it more intense every time. I learned this technique at a self-defense class for women. Pretty girls getting sent creepy DMs. My sister just turned 13 years old and is a good looking girl. Countless times how she showed me messages on Snapchat between her and some dudes 4-inch. Disgusting. Yesterday my 12-year-old niece got asked if she wanted to quoting here, not my choice of words. When she said no, he told her he would beat her up. Needless to say, I had an interesting conversation with that boy's mother. Please let us know what was said in the discussion. I would love to know if that disgusting behavior is a result of parents being blasé or if he learned it elsewhere. She didn't believe me at first, so I sent her the screenshots. She said she couldn't believe he was being serious and it was probably just a bad joke. I told her that I took threats like those very seriously and if he ever again, I would call his teachers and the authorities. She agreed in the end that behavior like this was not okay and that she would talk to him. I have only met his mother a couple of times when I picked up my niece from school, so I don't really know how things at his home are. I just know that he is also known for drinking and being generally rude. Birth control. My girlfriend is on an implant and it makes her period hella irregular and so she can bleed intermittently with no warning. So she'll just go to the toilet one day and be bleeding. No prediction of when it will happen. Just hey, you're bleeding now. How long for? Wouldn't you like to know? Just so we don't have kids we're not ready for. I'm happy to wear a condom, but it's not as safe as using something like the implant or a IUD in terms of family planning. She had to get that inserted into her arm with general anesthetic like a band. And one type of birth control doesn't work for everyone. I've heard my friends talking about how they have to take the pill at the same time every day. I can't even remember to have breakfast most days. I've heard you can get injections that last 3 months and can mess with your mood even on antidepressants. And some women I know will be on birth control because their boyfriend wants it raw. The lengths they go through is ridiculous. The hormones can really mess you up as well. I used to take the usual mixed hormones pill which gave me migraine strong enough to make me puke from pain. Switched to pure progesterone pill just to develop an ovarian cyst and depression. Now I've got the only reliable thing that doesn't contain any hormones, a copper coil, and it makes my uterus hurt as if it's being stabbed around my period time. A lot of my friends told me how the pill messed them up too. This should be talked about more often. It really should be talked about more often. I went on the pill about 3 years ago. I finally went off it recently after piecing together that a whole host of my health problems were being caused by it. The worst of the symptoms was severe anxiety and insomnia. I'm talking waking up in a full-blown panic attack at 3 AM and being unable to sleep till morning. It was awful. I've been off it for about 4 months and the worst of the symptoms are subsiding. However, now as an almost 30-year-old I have the worst acne I've ever had. I've read this can last up to 18 months as your body recovers. Why did my doctor not warn me about any of this? I'm a guy and I was working at an ice cream and candy shop and this older man comes in and orders some popcorn. As I'm scooping it into the container he looks at me and says, "Oh yeah, just pack it in." I like it when they pack it in real tight. In an obviously way. It made me uncomfortable and I bring it up talking to my coworkers and one of the girls who was much younger says, "Yeah, welcome to pretty much every day of my life." I, male, have spent a lot of my life working in hotels and learned very quickly that women aren't exaggerating about the guys will say to a total stranger. Even with me standing there listening to them try to hit on coworkers, there were people who had zero shame, filter, or sense of human decency. There are some real creeps out there. I used to work at a video/phone store when I was 18 and had a guy find me on Facebook with just my first name and message me pretending he needed help with the phone I helped him set up that day. Then asked if I wanted to be his friend. I said no, I have a boyfriend and I don't know you at all. He wasn't very happy with that answer, so I blocked him. Our society enables it. Women are just expected to deal with it when customers treat them this way. It's just like in pretty much every situation. Workers are expected to put up with disrespect to help the business's bottom line. Verbal, all of it and more. We need to make a change where we realize employees are humans and deserve respect at work. If someone is treating them poorly, they should have the option to kick them out. Periods. I once had it described to me as a hand grenade going off in your stomach, and I would really like to not have that every month for a few days. Then, of course, there's all the blood and whatnot. I try to help men understand what it's like for us, and this is the best I've come up with. Imagine you have the stomach flu. One of those bad ones with crippling stomach cramps and liquid. You're exhausted, you hurt, you generally don't feel good, and your nether regions feel disgustingly in need of a shower. Now imagine this happens every month. You can't just take 3 to 7 days off every month at the last second. You have to go to work, pick up the kids, get dinner, etc. The world at large doesn't gaff that you're miserable, so you just get up and keep going. Hormones can play a part, but tell me if you'd be a bit cranky having to function on all of the above. Getting catcalled. Specifically, I'm a guy that got catcalled a lot in high school and college. I ran distance in tiny short shorts and that's it, and got everything from whistles to honks, girls blowing kisses to guys yelling "farag" out of their car windows, to gay guys slapping my or complimenting me. I took it in stride, none if it ever bothered me, and that kind of colored my opinion of catcalling. Not that I approved of it, but that it wasn't that big a deal. Then I had a girlfriend in college, and she got catcalled while I was walking her home at night. It was a distinctly different experience. Turns out I never once felt threatened by my catcallers, but hers were definitely scary and threatening. It was a completely different experience, and really frightening. Obviously, I can only speak from my own female experience, but I think it's a fear thing. There's the knowledge that if my catcaller wanted to, they probably could overpower me if they wanted to take it to a physical place. Is never okay towards any gender though, and I'm sorry you experienced it. My husband and I were talking about the problem with catcalling with his mom, and he told me I had never been catcalled. I had to remind him that he was there the last time it happened, and it was about a week ago from the current conversation. We were at an air show, and during an intermission we ran back to our truck to reapply sunscreen. A group of guys didn't see my husband and started yelling things at me while I was rubbing sunscreen all over my chest. They stopped when he came into view and said something while I took it in stride. I had to lay out to him that a group of men were yelling things at me while I was seemingly alone at my truck in a mostly deserted parking lot, a field really, and that this is why I carry a mag light in the truck for all the good it does when the altercation is 1:5. Childbirth. My wife actually told me today that breastfeeding has been more painful than the childbirth of our daughter. I thought it was interesting because I have never heard that before. Apparently baby tongues are like sandpaper. It can take weeks for the nipple joint to thicken, so it doesn't hurt. Was news to me after I'd already became pregnant. Also, some women are constantly nauseous their entire pregnancies. HG being the extreme worst of it. I was one of the lucky few. Was like a 9-month stomach flu with a number of good days I could count on my hand. My wife had terrible morning sickness. She puked minimum 3 times a day every day throughout her pregnancy and lost over 40 pounds in her first few months. She wasn't overweight before either. It's astonishing how much can go wrong with childbirth. My wife's mother grew up in a polygamous cult, so hospital birth was not an option. My wife and her brother were born in their childhood bedroom in a very small town about 40 minutes from the nearest hospital. I consider my mother-in-law a superhero for going through that virtually unassisted, because that's what God wanted. As an Indian man, literally their entire lives. Indian man here too, can attest. Arranged marriage is a part of culture. It's hit or miss. Sometimes it's literally a nightmare if she ends up with a super defined gender roles everywhere. Divorced women are essentially second-rate citizens here. And there is zero education. Female orgasms are a myth. I hate tradition in India. Women cook, women eat after the men, women clean up. That When I'm there I try my best to get the women in the family to eat with us, then you best bet my is helping clean that up afterwards. Also the way men often have a grasp over women is disgusting, as well as the fact that domestic is pretty common in India. It's an issue that's difficult to tackle as the police are corrupt and don't care. Especially in rural India. Cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, even their husband's undergarments is considered to be women's responsibility. I live in an urban city and still my mom does it all you mentioned. Not that dad has treated her bad anytime and anyway, but she just has that inbuilt mentality that it's all her responsibility. I get super annoyed when I'm asked to start taking the same responsibilities just because I'm a female. Me doing any household chore is normal, but every man in my family gets complimented for it every time they do any. I always felt it weird from childhood on why men in family were complimented for things supposed to be normal for everyone. Apparently it was normal for only one gender I found after growing up. First of all, periods. Hats off to you all for handing them. Next, being forced to be aware of your surroundings anywhere you go. Like you always have a fear of a bad encounter. And finally, not being acknowledged while being out with a man. Many times I went to restaurants or shopping with someone, everyone always comes up to me instead of my date. One time during shopping for PC parts, I had to state that she wants to buy something. Not I, after many times of telling the salesman to ask her. Last point used to bother me a lot, specifically as a car enthusiast at car dealerships, stores, and events. The amount of times a man, often 50 plus, just shoved me, female, now early 30s, aside while I was admiring a car or just assumed I was there as decoration, or being dragged along by my BF is astonishing. I'm a female car dealer and I'm sorry, I know how frustrating it is. I always make it a point to try to engage the woman in equal or more conversation than the man, unless she is very clearly not interested in talking. I bought my first car a few years back. I took my then boyfriend with me to test drive because we just happened to be together at the time. Then I took my mom with me to actually buy the thing. The difference in the way we were treated was staggering. The manager, without literally any prompting, very condescendingly tried to explain to us what power steering is, as if it isn't completely self-explanatory. I got up to get something, and one of the salesmen leaning back in his chair to look at my I was so frustrated, and if I hadn't been all of 22, I would have told them to and left. Feeling safe in general. Whether it be outside after a certain year, parties, going to dates with someone new etc etc. From the stories I hear from friends and acquaintances, it's pretty scary sometimes. Also less impactful, but gaming. When a girl is gaming, it's always dudes telling he that she's a pick-me girl, that she only plays Minecraft, that she doesn't etc etc. Just them being disrespectful and annoying. Edit. It's even worse in places like Mexico, where I'm from and as my frame of reference. Edit. Our not your. And HER asterisk not he. As a guy, this is one of my pet peeves, the fact that some guys out there just can't keep their mouth shut or have the decency to leave women, or others, alone. Particularly in gaming, it seems to discourage women from getting involved or opening their mouth in game. I wouldn't even dare introduce my partner to any game without a solid group of friends that she could stick with. Yeah, and sometimes attacks can come out of nowhere. I was sitting on the patio at a restaurant when a couple of teenagers walked up to me and slapped a glass out of my hand as I was drinking out of it. The force snapped my neck around, and I wound up with a cervical concussion. Lovely. Turns out these people were walking around this upscale mall assaulting women and old men. Basically, anyone who looked too small or frail to fight back. No, the cops didn't catch them. The way people react to that story is so crazy too. Almost everyone swears they would have been able to not get hit, somehow. Like it's my fault I didn't get out of the way or something. Really, I'm just a very short and small female easy target. These kids literally just walked up and hit me. I tell people, you know what? If you were me, they would have done the same thing to you, and there wouldn't be a thing you could have done about it either. It was so random and so fast. You just have the benefit of not looking like an easy target, so no one has ever assaulted you. As a man, I thought it must be great to be able to have with so many people. I thought it was good that a woman could count on a one night stand at the bar. As I got older I realized that women also have to walk through a world where a lot of men want to them and many men don't care how they get there. Lying, getting women drunk, or drugging them, or flat out men they may know, or complete strangers or even close relatives. That must be far harder than having to impress a woman to have consensual. There's also the fact that the random one night stand is likely uninterested in getting you off. Better to just masturbate with a toy because there's a guarantee of pleasure with no risk of harm from a stranger. Also, batteries usually last longer than the guy. Yeah, I had a couple of one night stands and I usually get myself off using my own hand during the act. Honestly, most guys love it. Most guys will feel less if their one night stand doesn't so they try to do their best. The emphasis is on try. Most guys can't grasp the idea of female gratification, so they don't know how to please women. It's not that they are completely uninterested, but they just work in a different way. If you read some feedback from trans women, even the ones that haven't completed their change yet and are only on hormone therapy, you realize how much hormones change the experience of for both sides. Feeling comfortable walking home alone after dark. Unfortunately, I used to live in a not great area of South London, New Cross for anyone wondering. On the way home from the bus stop was a long, L-shaped alley that went round a warehouse with a high bank on the other side. It was effectively a long dark tunnel. The L shape also meant you would often get a surprise encounter with someone coming the other way at the bend. One night I was walking home and there was a woman walking ahead of me, looking kind of nervous. I already was going through that whole oh god she thinks I'm following her thing, but I manned up and called to her, asking if she wanted me to go ahead through the alley. She accepted so gratefully that it made me realize what a relieving thing it was for her. I started doing this anytime the situation arose. I don't think I have ever had a woman refuse the offer. Years ago, before cell phones were really around, there was a brutal attack of a young woman in a laundromat in the city I lived in. She lived, but for a few months her attacker was at large. Needless to say, for those of us who needed to go to a laundromat, it was a deeply nervous time. I went one day to find it empty, so I sat down next to the doors. About halfway through my wash a guy entered. He saw me and teetered around the table to get to his washers instead of walking past me. He left the same way. When he returned for his stuff from the dryer he did the same thing, stuffed his clothes in the basket and left. I have always felt kindly towards him because he clearly knew that he needed to appear as harmless as possible and tried and succeeded. I admit he may also have wanted to make sure I didn't go berserk and accuse him of being the attacker if he got too close. The constant talking down to and the constant looking down upon. I've seen this in all areas of my life, but it became prominent when I was a technical trainer at a large web hosting company. I had a handful of incredibly brilliant women techs that were berated, insulted and mansplained to on an hourly basis by customers either via phone or chat. I mentioned this to the director of our department who didn't seem to believe me. Unbeknownst to him, I allowed several of the women techs to change their names in our chat program to more male sounding names. Nothing else about their approach changed, but the results were astonishing. Within the span of the first week, all of their NPS scores skyrocketed. A month into it, several were nominated for Employee of the Month awards. My manager asked me how we were able to turn things around, and I confessed that I'll let them change their names. I graphed several KPIs to show that nothing else about what they were doing had changed. I would listen to calls where men who would fall just short of saying they didn't believe a woman could know such technical things, only to be transferred to a male tech who provided the exact same information. Only then was it accepted and acknowledged as believable. My hat's off to all women, but a special shout out to women in tech. The amount I've seen you all have to deal with is astounding and embarrassing. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.